PX.
No, that was weird because I was like, it's funny. We shared the studio with your Worst Neighbors podcast with Jorge, and so it was one of those things where like I think he did. I did the same thing. I did
last time, and
yeah. And I'm like, okay, my bad. I was like, why is my volume? There we go. Okay, yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And that voice that you hear right now.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually like to do an intro, but I like how we were just kind of like talking. So I was like, fuck, I'm just gonna start recording.
Yeah, fuck it, funny. Man. Let's just make a mess.
And that amazing voice you hear is.
That's I'm Mean Dave.
Yay.
Yep.
I was like, I thought I had an applause button here, but
comedian,
that's so much I don't do. Yeah.
Musician. All around unlikable human being.
Well, and I was gonna say, like, how long have you been a musician, and how long have you been doing comedy?
I've been playing music since like 1990, like 1 or 2, maybe 1990.
What instrument?
Well, I started on the guitar, but also I didn't know exactly how to play guitar, and yeah. Me and some friends. Oh, good, you got sound effects.
I haven't got an air horn.
My friends had a joke band called Monstrous Joker Babies that was like not a real band.
But because you said joke band.
It's a joke band being that what they were trying to do was record these terrible songs, give them to people, and say that it was a band they heard of. They didn't know. And no one bought it. Everybody's like, this is you. and it was,
we just saw you on stage.
It wasn't even good. It wasn't even music really. It was them fucking around with like, they weren't recording like on a 4-track or anything. It was just like taking a regular tape recorder and making a bunch of noise on it. And so I thought I would do something, try to one up them, because I was desperately wanting to like make music in some form.
You're in the band.
Didn't have skills yet. Well, I wasn't in the band with them yet, but I ended up they did invite me over to fill in for their bass player. And then that's when I learned that they also like weren't a real band, because I'm like, why do you need me over here? You just need somebody pretending to be a bass player. And
were they not even playing like in sync? We
weren't even playing. We didn't play a fucking thing. I think I wrote a song while I was there, but that's when I realized I'm like, oh, you guys are just full of shit. And they're my close friends. They're guys that I still know today. Most of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it was called Monstrous Joker Babies, and they all had like alter egos names. There was Igor, Asaru, and Prince Albert. Those were the 3 names for the guys that were in it. And so they had to give me a name. So they gave me the name Trouthead.
Oh.
They called me Trouthead. And there was no reason behind it. I think my friend read it in a book. And it had nothing to do with me liking fish or anything like that. They're just like, you're Trouthead. Now, unlike the other 3 guys with their names, they decided in school that they were going to keep calling me Trouthead at school.
Is this high school?
This is high school, like sophomore, junior year. And so they kept calling me Trouthead. And this was like the end of sophomore year. So then, because then over the summer, I went on a trip to Seattle, and I went to this weird, shop that was really cool. This is like when Seattle was booming was breaking out with their music,
right?
Like the grunge scene and all that.
So was that kind of the genre the music was?
No,
it like
not at all. No, it was nothing music. I mean, if there's any band that they wish they could be, it would be like the worst of the Butthole Surfers, like, of their kind of like shenanigans. But it wasn't even that thought out or controlled or whatever. It was really just them being idiots.
Yeah, and you're like, I want to join.
It being idiots. Well, no, I thought they had a band, and then when I heard it, I'm like, oh, you don't even have a band at all. You guys are just fucking around. And I was the one kind of like, when they brought me into the fold, I'm like, I want a band. Like, I thought you guys were a band. You guys are full of shit.
How did you find them? Like,
they're my friends. I've known them. These are my close friends from junior high on. I met these guys in junior high, all of them in different manners, and then I kind of lost touch with them like freshman year, because we had our junior high had 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and 7th and 8th grade.
Junior high. I had junior high combined.
7th grade, I started hanging out with my skater friends, and then I kind of got disillusioned with them. So then 8th grade, I was hanging out with the friends that I mostly hang out with that I still know today. I know some of my skater friends too, actually, but it was just weird because my skater friends started smoking. One guy started smoking. My friend Chris Nornberg.
Smoking cigarettes, smoking weed.
Smoking cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
We didn't get into the
this
weed
is like
to high school.
sophomore, freshman.
No, this is seventh
Junior.
grade.
Seventh grade. Oh shit.
And that's why I was getting pissed because we were called stoners by the other kids in the school just because we listened to metal and skated. And
but you guys weren't
we weren't smoking
stoners,
weed at all. They were smoking weed. I found out later.
The ones that were
calling us stoners.
Yeah,
used to piss me off something awful. And my friend started smoking cigarettes, and I'm like, I don't want to be hanging out with a dude smoking cigarettes because now I'm going to smell like cigarettes,
right?
And people are going to think that I'm smoking cigarettes. My parents mainly. And
yeah.
I'm like, and it's not like I'm trying to be a good student or whatever. It's like I just don't want bullshit coming my way. And not only that, my friend Chris at the time was kind of a prick.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with Chris today. Love him to pieces, but he also can be a prick, and at the time he was a real fucker. So he was playing too many little like for boys. He was like the mean girl, the head mean girl of our little skater group.
He's a smoker too. He was
he was starting to smoke.
Yeah,
he
was the
thinks
leader.
He's James Dean or some shit.
Oh no!
And I was like, I don't want to fucking kick it with a smoker. Fuck him. So I started hanging out with these other guys that just were my friends through interests. My friend Jason,
you guys had classes to each other? Anything?
Some of them, not really, because I was in the nerd classes. Like I was a good student, and my friends were incredibly smart, but they were very like I want to say they were beyond school because they're all like
geniuses or something.
No, they're not geniuses. No, I say beyond school. Like my friend, the guy who's the most successful is my friend Daryl. And he ended up, he was a straight C and D student. I met him in 7th grade, but we were adversaries in 7th grade. We became friends in 8th grade.
What's adversaries?
Oh, we were enemies. Like adversaries.
You guys were enemies.
He was a guy that I met him and I hated him. I didn't.
Yeah.
But he made me laugh.
Okay.
Like I did not like him because I was like, dude, fucking, he's an arrogant little prick. Always fucking picking on the teachers and whatever. Not like I'm like pro teacher. It was just like they're just trying to do their job.
Yeah, they're just trying to do their job. Exactly.
An asshole. But every now and then he would do something that would make me laugh. And I'm like, well, he's not all bad. But he would be a prick to me where he would always sell sodas and candy like out of a bag.
Yeah,
he was always a hustler.
Yeah.
And he would sell the sodas for like 50 cents.
Yeah.
But if I wanted one, he would say it's $1.
What?
Yeah,
right in
and I
front
was
of
like,
you.
so I would steal sodas from his bag when he wasn't looking. I would steal candy and sodas from his bag whenever I'd
You're like,
get a
fuck
chance.
this kid.
Yeah, no, it's kind of how it was.
That's hella funny.
And so we kind of had that weird rivalry where, and it was funny, and it carried throughout 7th grade. But in 8th grade, we had the same PE class. We hadn't seen each other all summer, and something happened, I guess, during the course of like the summer where I stopped hanging out with those previous skater friends.
The stoners.
They weren't stoners.
They weren't stoners, but they were called stoners.
We were called stoners too.
Oh,
all of us were called stoners.
That's
even
so
though
interesting.
None of us, it was just because we had mullets at the time, but we were, some of us had long hair. We wore black
But none
shirts.
of you guys smoked weed.
No, none of us really tried weed until like probably freshman year was when somebody tried it. But I didn't even try it until late sophomore year.
Oh, wow.
But they would call it was just school is stupid. Kids are stupid.
Yeah,
People
kids
stupid.
are mean.
No, they're not mean. They're fucking idiots.
They're
just
mean
like they're
too.
idiots or adults are mean too.
Yeah.
People are fucking idiots. That's why I don't buy into any of this sensitivity culture of like we need to whatever. I'm like that's just a mask for guilt.
I mean, because look at what we used to do back in the day. You know what I mean? Like we dealt with the shit that we went through as children without phones.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we all had our different. I mean, we all had our various forms of what would have been social media, which is just rumors.
Yeah, gossiping.
Yeah, and people twisting, talking shit behind each other's back. That's old school social
But now,
media.
I mean, I feel like it with old school social media, like you had to be there to know any of the facts, or you know what I mean, or to witness anything. Versus like now, like you can record it.
Yeah.
And now there's like so many people that are viewing shit.
No, I'm seeing that the more that people have recordings, and the more that it doesn't amount to much. It doesn't because context is key. You can distort just as much, if not more so, with video. Now we got AI
Pictures.
too. So how much can you believe in a picture, and how much can you believe in just so much? And you're seeing it really play out with a lot of the Israeli-Palestine conflict because you have, war, genocide, if they want, however, the fact that that whatever's going on over there, that I think we're witnessing people respond to it the same way that people were responding to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because that's when the news still reported the news fairly accurately, and they were showing footage of what was happening to the Vietnam people out there. And so, and the court of public opinion was very was extreme. It was
and
either
the Vietnamese
you were
won that war.
Huh?
Vietnamese won that war, right?
Won, lost. I don't think anybody won anything over there. It was just a mess because there were interests that were both political and financial. And it was one of the wars that was clearly something to do with whatever the agenda against the appearance of communism. Vietnam wasn't a threat to America.
No, they weren't. But we came over there.
They went over there because of something to do with the communism nonsense, and there was definitely money to be made in the business of war.
Yeah, and
that's what all of this shit is.
In Vietnam, I want to say they chased the United States out. Like, we retreated, didn't we, or something like that?
No, what were we trying to do? We
exactly.
we didn't meet whatever the agenda was out there. But anyways, getting back to my friends though, in junior high, I ended up becoming friends with, so me and Daryl were sort of like the United States in Vietnam. I call me Vietnam because I was the underdog.
Yeah.
But no, he was, we became friends because we were in the same row in PE in our locker rooms. And somehow we mellowed out and we ended up becoming friends. And then I got this like ragtag group of like randos of friends through common senses of humor, I think. That's really what it was, because there's my friend Jason, my friend Daryl, my friend Mike Sills, and then our friend Ben kind of came into it too, and there were some other people around it, and we even we're still cool with my skater friends. I just didn't hang out with them regularly anymore.
Right,
and
that was the band. That was the bandmates.
No, the band ended up. The band was. This is far. The band came later.
Way later. Okay.
But these are the guys that I'm talking about now. Yeah. The Wyatt Tungate. That was another one. But Daryl, Jason, and Wyatt in sophomore year they were making this fake band. That's like 3 years later.
So high school at that point.
It's high school.
But you've
at that
known
point.
them. That's
I've known them since junior high. Yeah. And we were so we had our assorted friendships. Ninth grade, I didn't hang out with them as much, but I still did. I also hung out with this guy named Amit, who looked a lot like me, but he was a little shorter and he was Indian.
Yeah.
So and everybody would think we were brothers, and I'm like, I'm Mexican, Guatemalan, British. He's Indian.
Yeah.
And not only that, he's his voice is a lot different than mine. He has a deeper voice, and he says "fucking" way more than I do. Like fucking, gotta fucking this and fucking that. And he was a character, but we had a vested interest in like metal and stuff. And
how about now? Do you guys still look alike now?
Nah, maybe not really. I've seen him now. He's a very successful CPA.
Okay.
He works. He's what's funny is this was what he set out to do. He's now he's an accountant. Works for a very big accountant firm, and makes quite a chunk of change. And
what about Daryl?
No, that's what I'm saying. Daryl was the guy that was a straight C&D student, and he does very well working for PG&E.
Oh, okay.
He manages people with higher educations than him.
Yeah.
Because he's somewhat of a
Sounds
master.
Like a leader.
Not really. He thinks himself one, but he's more. I mean, he has a charisma and stuff, and I have a lot of love and respect for him. He's a unique guy, and he's somewhat of one of the, I would say, an original thinker that I met at that time and have gotten to know over the years, and we still have, I have my podcast called Meaningful Times with Friends. I only post it on YouTube, but it is with Jason. Daryl doesn't go by Daryl though, because we have to protect his anonymity for his job.
Right, of course.
So he's Ramshackle Dan. And I don't think anybody's going to put it together from this podcast to that one.
No.
But he's Ramshackle Dan, and then my friend Jason, and then another guy, Nate, who Nate was older than us, but we knew who we saw him around in junior high. We didn't become friends with him till high school though.
Was he also in the band?
No, he had nothing to do with any of the bands. He's not a musical. I mean, he loves music, but he's not. He never tried to play any music. He was one of these guys that truly loves music and was like, yeah, I can't play.
Yeah,
and I respect.
He
the
just
fuck
likes
out
to
of that.
listen.
It's like it's like comedy fans that like, I don't do comedy. I'm like,
Yeah.
Bless you, because every comedy fan thinks they can do it.
Well, so this podcast is called The Pretty Extreme, and I mean, without even I usually ask people what makes them extreme, but you've kind of told a good, pretty.
There's a lot
pretty,
of things that can be
pretty good
extreme
story
about
but
me.
One of the main things that I'm pretty sure I've heard it before, but how did you get the name Mean Dave?
The name, just again, so that first nickname, Trouthead.
Yeah.
Again, I ended up having a real band with one of those guys from Monstrous Joker Babies, which was Daryl. We started a band that actually started playing. It wasn't still quite a real band, but it was real enough because we made a demo, we played some shows, and we annoyed the hell out of. They didn't like us at all, and we weren't trying to be annoying. It's just our music was not good.
But you two were the only original from the other band.
We were the only ones that played music that came from that other band.
Were they envious? Were the other people
No. There wasn't
starting a new band?
No, there's none of the things that you think about of a band.
I don't know.
Apply to this group.
Okay,
like because these guys were like. They're all smart asses. The only guy who went on to be a real musician was Wyatt Tungate. Okay. And he played in some bands. He's a slap at the bass kind of bass player. And he plays guitar too. Very talented guy. I'm still friends with him. I'm the one guy who's still in touch with him. And then Jason actually he makes noise today. But Jason wanted to kind of try to be bandish, but he was never like pining for it. It was more like he thought himself somebody who was going to be, because we were going to have a band too, but he was supposed to be the vocalist, but he never wrote lyrics, or he wrote lyrics, he never sang them. We never made a recording with it. I was always running into people that were like saying they were going to do something or wanted to be a part of something. Yeah, and they're full of shit. And they don't execute. They don't execute. Yeah. Well, Jason, as time moves on, he ended up, he's actually quite talented in making part of the noise scene. He makes noise. Under the name Bird Spanker. You can find it.
When you say he makes noise,
you gotta look it up. The best way to describe it is noise, because that's what it will sound like to anybody who doesn't know, and that's what the genre is. There's noise. There's a whole scene of music called noise, and it's and there's subgenres to that. And I'm there's harsh noise. There's I don't know what I don't really know them all, but Jason, he's part of the noise scene out in San Francisco and makes his noise under the name Bird Spanker. You can find it on Bandcamp at birdspanker.bandcamp.com, and it's really good. I enjoy
and what
stuff.
Instrument did you play in this newfound band?
In the new band that was called Snot Locker, and this was the band we formed over the summer of between my sophomore and junior year. We formed Snot Locker, and that was me as Trouthead and my friend Daryl as Assaru. Was he Assaru or Prince Albert?
So you kept your names?
Yeah. He was Assaru. I think Daryl was Assaru. Because, Prince Albert, Igor was Wyatt, and I think Jason might have been Igor. Wyatt might have been Prince Albert, but I'm pretty sure Daryl was Assaru. Because it's long. I forget this.
And is it Prince Albert... like the Prince, or Prince Albert, like the piercing?
I don't even know.
Okay, because I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't even know that was a thing either. And I mean, I saw the name. I knew there was a joke around it. I didn't care. I really, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not curious about in a lot of life. But so we made this group. And it was me on guitar. Daryl was playing bass, and we had a keyboard for our drummer, just playing with presets of very boring beats. And we wrote these overlong songs of just riffs that were very dull, and but we kept some of the songs are interesting. It was poorly recorded on a 4-track, and we played shows and stuff, and so that was that band. And every band after that got better and better that I was in, or that was something cooler. Like his Snot Locker was a band I can look back on it and laugh at it, and I even like some of the songs, and I would definitely play them better today, but I never took that to be like a real serious band, even though we took it more seriously than some. But then I started being in these other bands that I actually, it was music that I was writing where I was like, oh, actually, this is cool. Like I was experimenting because I was recording my own stuff on 4-tracks just to see if I could make something that I would like.
You keep saying 4-track.
A 4-track.
Is it like an 8-track?
No,
what's a 4-track?
Yeah, similar. 4-track. Like a cassette. It's what it is. Back then and still today. 4-track recorders were your basic bottom line recording home studios. that was using a cassette tape.
A cassette tape, okay.
And you have 4 tracks to record on to combine into a recording that you can mix on to another tape deck or whatever and make your mix.
Okay, I had to explain because I was like, wait, what is a 4-track?
That's what a 4-track recording is. It's your basic analog
but it's
recording.
a cassette.
It's a cassette.
Do people still use a cassette? No, they use DVDs now,
they
or
use
like
all kinds
CDs.
Everybody
now,
uses
MP3.
all kinds of shit now, but but that's your basic analog.
That's the original.
Yeah, and they have 8-track too for cassettes. And I mean, it's the same concept from recording that goes back to when, Motown and all that stuff is using reel to reel.
Yeah.
It's tape.
Yeah.
And a lot of people prefer analog recordings. I like a lot of analog recordings. Digital is cool. There's stuff you can make with digital, but
there's nothing like it.
You're not going to get the same sound that's cool, that sounds historic or old or used or like old punk recordings or whatever. And I like stuff that sounds a little.
So would you
up.
say you're like a garage band? Is that
there's no we live in an age of genres of all this stuff. Snotlocker was a bad pop punk band. My friend called it goofcore, and there's no core in any
pop.
Of it. Pop. It was poppy because it was basically like
upbeat.
dumb Ramones, like really dumb Ramones, if anything. And we didn't even like the Ramones.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you guys cover?
It was just dumb because it was like I was into a lot of heavy. I wanted to play stuff that was like heavy and scary, but these weren't the players for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would ever get to that level. And then I started hearing guys like this band Fudge Tunnel, and then Nirvana broke out, where I started hearing guitar sounds of guys that were playing riffs, and I'm like, oh, I can play this.
Yeah.
But I also like guitar players from this band like Godflesh, and eventually I got into what is still my favorite band, the Melvins, and I would hear these guitar players that were playing stuff that was like, it wasn't your usual approach to guitar. It was where you're using it more kind of as a noise instrument as well as playing riffs. And it's just a different approach to playing guitar. I wasn't into the shredders because I wasn't into the soloists.
Yeah.
I wasn't into stuff that like a lot that was very, I don't want to say mainstream, but it was just like, I don't know.
That's the best way to describe it. Like
yes, but there wasn't really mainstream at that time because it was all still,
new.
Metal was still an outsider thing. Today, again, like kind of, we live in a culture today where like everything's all in the same boat, where like there are, even all the stuff now is that's why there's no real like, I want to say like groupings of kids anymore. It's like everybody's into everything. Right. Everybody's into, so like when we were growing up, it was more like there was metalheads, there were jocks, there were nerds, there were, whatever the specific things. And it's not like, oh, we liked it that way. It was just that's kind of seemed how it went about. And as we got into high school, people kind of blended together more. And I never thought of myself necessarily as anything specific other than I liked a lot of heavy music, and I also liked a lot of hip hop too.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't as into stuff that was like deemed like the modern rock shit, which a lot of people did like. Yeah. Like even like, your mainstream
like
kind
Guns
of thing.
N' Roses.
No, Guns N' Roses wasn't modern rock. No, the Guns N' Roses was hard rock, but the modern rock like The Cure or all the stuff that was kind of even poppy in the 80s, like Duran Duran and Pet Shop Boys, all the stuff that's in John Hughes movies.
Okay.
Because like 16 Candles and shit,
If
you want
Breakfast Club.
I put you twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that crap. And I was never into Depeche Mode or any of that shit. But some of my friends were. Yeah. And I just always, that was music from the 120 Minutes on MTV. That was the Sunday night at midnight. Yeah. I was a Headbangers Ball guy, which is Saturday night at midnight. And even most of Headbangers Ball was still leftover glam rock and Guns N' Roses, which I liked Quiet Riot when I was 7 years old. But
I was going to say, MTV is not like MTV anymore.
Oh no, it's a reality TV show programming.
Which sucks.
It turned that way into the 2000s,
Yeah, when they started doing the reality TV stuff.
Yeah, less videos and more just, programming of here's a bunch of douchebags and it's real and it's not,
Yeah.
like real world. And
I'm not going to lie,
rules.
I got sucked into some of the real world shows.
Oh, we all did.
And then I got sucked into the Love and Hip Hop and
Osbournes and
oh my gosh,
Jersey Shore, all that crap.
the Jersey Shore. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, and they're still They're still
going
successful.
strong.
Yeah, they're still successful.
They are
There's
still going strong.
a lot of successful, terrible people out there.
Okay, so you have 30 years of music then.
So I would say, let's see, because so that's 19. Where are we at now?
We're in the 2000s.
Yeah, it's over 30 years. Yeah,
30
so
years
I started playing in bands around 1991. I would say that's when I started actually jamming and trying to jam with other people. Would be 90, 91, and then
it's a little over 30 years.
Yeah, it's a little over 30 years, and then but my first real band came later, and that I enjoyed, and then I would have a different name in every group. So I would create a different name. So like
Trouthead
evolved into other names. So like when I was in this band Snowy Plover, I would call myself like Cabeza or Cabeza de Tiza or no, that was, I forget what I call it. No, I think I still call myself Trouthead in Snowy Plover, but it was, or they would just call me Dave. But it was the Spanish translation of Trouthead is Cabeza de Trucha. So I use that in other bands. I didn't really come up with a moniker necessarily. I think they just used Dave in this band Tonopah. And then I was in this band Woozor, where I did use Cabeza. I would call it Cabeza de Tiza, or the anti-Dave, and then the anti-Dizza. And then I would kind of just always play with the name throughout those years. And then I heard when I got wind of Wu-Tang, and I saw how they would always have a million names. I'm like, oh yeah, I got a million names too. So I was kind of satirizing that. There was like, Dave Anonymous. I came up with that name for this band Funeral Shock that I played drums in. And then Anti-Dave Anonymous, which was for my one-man band. And then I started a band called Bad Touch, which was just me and my friend Eric playing drums, and I was playing guitar and doing vocals. And so I was trying to think of names for the band, and I watched a movie. There was an old Grindhouse movie called Mean Frank and Crazy Tony. And I was like, Mean Dave and Crazy Eric.
Yeah.
And it had the same rhythm. So, or the same like number of syllables, and I liked the ring of it, so I wrote that down. Me and Dave and Crazy Eric, and I said, whatever our name will be, those will be our monikers. Yeah. And the name of the band became Bad Touch, and then I was like, me and Dave and Crazy Eric were Bad Touch. Yeah. And I liked that, and Eric liked it.
It had a nice ring to it.
Yeah. And
it was a 2-person band though.
Yeah. So it was 2-person band, and there was a comedic thread to it. That was the other thing. That's what led me to comedy. There was a comedy thread in the band, like between songs, and but it was very conscious. It wasn't like, some people, a lot of comedians or a lot of musicians are hams. They want to be comedians too.
Right.
And so they like to think they're clever and all. I'm not a clever person. I know people laugh at me and laugh at me being honest, or me being
being you.
In a way, I don't think I'm a very funny person. I never did. I've always thought of myself as a pretty serious person, but I make a lot of mistakes. I have a lot of accidents, and just naturally shit happens where it's like I have to just shake it off and have a good sense of humor about it.
That's pretty extreme, because that's something that I've always thought about myself, where I agree with you. Like till this day, I don't think I'm funny.
I think I'm less funnier after being in comedy too.
Yeah. But the fact that people laugh, you're like, okay, it has to be funny. You're getting booked, right? You're doing shows.
Yeah, no, that's all comedy is trying to learn how to manipulate that. How to, because when I was not doing comedy, I could make people laugh kind of at my leisure, and I enjoyed it. And the band was the first taste of trying to,
because it was comedic. You said something.
I told my friend, because I was really inspired. I wanted to create a band that was like, I read the Don Rickles book. I love Don Rickles, and I love Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
Oh, okay.
And those are two characters that are, they call them insult comics.
Yeah, the insult Doug. Where's he from? Is he from?
That's Robert Smigel. He came from Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien. That's where I saw this segment.
Robert Smigel is the I learned so much about Robert Smigel and how much he's had a thread in my life through comedy because of this fucking puppet. I loved the dog. Yeah. And then I learned who the guy was, and I'm like, oh, this is the guy that goes back to Saturday Night Live. He was the dude that I could never figure out who he was in those Bears sketches. The Bears. Yeah. Like, they would always do these sketches with George Wendt, Chris Farley, Mike Myers, and they're all playing Chicago guys with mustaches, sunglasses, all talking about the Chicago Bears and bratwurst and all that. And there was always a fourth guy that didn't look familiar, and I couldn't figure out who the fuck he was.
But he was the insult
I'm like,
dog.
who is that guy? That was Robert Smigel.
Yeah.
And Smigel's been he's not a performer per se, but he's performed, and
Right.
you have seen him in shit. He's in Adam Sandler movies, like he's in Happy Gilmore.
Now I'm like losing. I'm trying to think who.
Smigel is he's a
Because I remember the comic The Insult Dog. I remember,
Yeah.
and I remember all those things that you're saying, like SNL, Adam Sandler.
You've seen Robert Smigel in something. He's not any standout character as a person, but you've seen him. He's the IRS guy that shows up in Happy Gilmore, who Happy Gilmore throws out of his grandma's house. He's like, I got to take the house. You hate me, don't you? And he has a very distinct voice. He's great at like voice acting, but he's written sketches. He wrote a lot of sketches for Dana Carvey. That's so he worked a lot with him.
This picture of him though looks like he's from Backstreet Boys.
Let me see. He's wearing a hat. He's not in Backstreet.
He's not, but in that picture, I was like, hey, he looks like Joey Fatone. That's who he reminds me.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Joey Fatone is who he has on a lot, working with Triumph in some side project shit.
Yeah,
they've done a lot of stuff, and Joey Fatone's been a part of it with Triumph a lot of times.
That's funny.
That's really funny that you think that.
Yeah, no, I was like, he looks kind of reminds me.
But Smigel inspired me through Triumph and Don Rickles, and I had this idea for an insult like comic rock band of like making a band that's kind of stripped down metal tone blues like the Danzig band, because I'm a big fan of Danzig's albums 1 through 4 because I love the players on it, John Christ and Chuck Biscuits, the guitar player and drummer. Their sound is amazing, and it turns out Rick Rubin had a lot more to do with that than Glenn Danzig. But I wanted to start a band that was like those tones, but with songs that I had already written for another band that they didn't really use. And I had this wealth of songs that were these sarcastic kind of attitude songs that I'm like, I can make fun of the audience. I can make fun of the music audiences because I have years of resentments towards them from my years of playing music. And it worked in your
favor.
Oh, it completely did. I was able to make audiences laugh at all of their cliched behavior that I fucking hated. Like, when people, they play some Skinner, or just all the dumb shit that audiences say. I like having a creative outlet for expressing my disdain for people in general. And that was what the band was. And it worked really well because we were making people laugh who got it. And we were able to rock some cool songs. And we had that band for about 4 years. And during that time, there was a little bit of a lull. And that's when I started doing stand-up to try and promote the band.
During the 4 years?
During that 4 years, in 2010 was when I decided to try stand-up so that I could help promote the band maybe through stand-up. And I didn't anticipate what a different medium stand-up was versus being funny in front of a music audience. It's not the same thing. And so I had to start from scratch. And that process was very hard on the drummer, so he quit.
And it's a 2-person band.
Exactly. So now I'm stuck doing stand-up with no band.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and but I had done enough stand-up to see that there were hack comedians making money off of it.
Right.
Like that I'm like, these comedians are terrible. And they're being paid.
Yeah.
This is fucking ridiculous. And so I thought I can figure out how to be just a little bit less terrible than that just so I can get paid.
You're right.
I didn't think less of them. It was just more or less looking at it like, and I definitely, what's funny is I thought less of them then. I have a great respect now for even the hackiest of comedy that works.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I think it's great. It's just that all of comedy is a hack to me. Like you can take all of the most edgiest, most of the time, the most relevant, all this bullshit language of comedy. It's all hacky.
Which is one of the topics.
Nobody's cool in comedy.
One of the topics I wanted to bring up.
One of you.
That's one of the topics I wanted to bring up because I saw your post on Facebook about Matt Rife.
Matt Rife is actually cool in my mind because you know something? All he's proving is that you can be attractive. What I love is
you can be funny.
Nah, I don't care if comedy doesn't matter whether you're funny or not. It matters if you put butts in seats. That's what every comedy club owner that's around here that talks on a podcast. You got to put butts in seats and you could have a dead dog that is popular. If a dead dog can fill a room, that dead dog will be able to headline the San Jose Improv, the Cobb's Comedy Club, any of the fucking clubs that needs butts and seats, because those, and then move on to theaters. But it just is, all of comedy is popularity contest.
It is.
I like what's funny to me is I love the struggled aspect of it. That was what was interesting to me about it. Was like like these modern blues players of today. And that's why I didn't want to do it too, because I love stand-up comedy. I didn't want to be one. I love playing music. Music's cool. All right. If you can get past drug addiction and somehow find a way to still make cool music, you're set. But I could never figure out a way to make a living at it, because also that requires other people. There's a lot of,
for a band.
Right. Yeah. And I would definitely want to, but in the style of genres of music that I was making, it wasn't like cool to want to try to do that. You get into comedy, everybody's desperate to sell themselves out without having anything to sell.
Yeah.
That was like, as soon as they get in, like, I'm ready for my special, my HBO special, chief.
I got merch.
It's just like that. Merch. That's what that message that I got from that guy. Like, I haven't done stand up, but I've got 10 minutes of solid material that I'd love to try out on your show sometime.
I said, give him a chance.
No, everybody said that. No, a lot of people said that. I'm like, yeah, they need to figure out how to do that. I was one of those people that thought I had something to say when I hadn't gone up before, and I learned really quick that, like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Everybody has to figure that out. And the ones that, like, hit the ground funny are ones that probably had no expectations. And I've seen it too. Like, I saw David Bory's early sets, and he's a working comic now that, he's the voice of Paramount Plus and Comedy Central. But I saw his first sets, and I saw how kind of surprised he was at realizing that, like, oh, people really like, he has a lot of factors that play into things. He has a funny insight. He has a funny voice and a presence that's just, likable. And I watched him figure it out. And even he had to learn how to bomb. Like, so it's like, doesn't matter how good you are. Everybody's going to bomb sooner or later. And you got to learn how to bomb with character and figure out all that stuff. Well, I was somebody who anticipated bombing on all the time and would almost like have no problem bombing. But I wanted to get better at comedy, and that requires having to care and having to figure out how to make these fucking morons laugh that you don't like.
So what was it? Did you go to like an open mic or a show and you're like, I want to try that, I want to do that?
No, I didn't. I didn't. It wasn't even that. None of it looked attractive to me on that part. I was a fan of comedy since I was a child.
Right.
So I've watched.
And you were in a
I grew
band
up on
at the
80s
time.
comedy that inspired me just as a person. I love Bobcat Goldthwait. Dennis Miller. When I was a kid, I had their specials memorized, and Bill Cosby, and I still followed it somewhat through the 90s because we saw Chris Rock break out with his Bring the Pain special, and Bigger Than Blacker later, and then late 90s Chappelle with his Killing Him Softly special. That was like the next special that I kind of had memorized after those 80s specials. And like I would watch it to the point where I would have it memorized, like, hey baby, like I could say the lines in it. And there's even like inflections and in his voice that I sometimes mimic even in my own act to this day. But I never wanted to do it because stand up I know is just like it's you see what these lives are behind the scenes. I was a fan of Sam Kinison. He's dead. He not only that, he had to clean up, get sober to get killed in a car accident with a drunk driver.
Crazy.
And just they're not attractive lives. So I never wanted to be a stand-up, and it's not because I thought that being a rock musician was attractive. It was more just like, no, I like music, and I think it's cool making sounds. Making people laugh is like a gift, and I loved making people laugh. Like, don't get me wrong, that was the other thing
You definitely have that gift.
I wasn't honest with myself about growing up, was that as much as people laughed at me and all this other stuff, I did like thinking of something and that made people laugh. What I knew was that sometimes when you're trying to make people laugh, that makes it less funny, and rather than just having a sincere expression of something, and that and if it gets a laugh, so be it. So that's the difference where, like take somebody like who's Mr. Cool right now, fucking, I don't know if he's not as popular as he used to be, but he's still pretty popular as the one-liner dipshit, Anthony Jeselnik, all right? He's like the king of all the edgelords, okay? Nobody calls him an edgelord because he's such a good joke writer, but his jokes are all edgelord. It's like he's one of the comics that young, mostly white male comics look at and be like, I want to do that. Him. Yeah, I want to talk about rape and fucking edgy and race and say things that, people, and then they go and they try to juggle fire right off the bat. And I'm not saying that this is what Anthony Jeselnik does. I'm saying he set out to be an edgy comic from the get-go, and he's done a good job at doing that. and he looks good doing it. He's all of those things that make it look attractive. I'm not into that. I wasn't into things looking attractive. Again, look at the comics that I saw. Dennis Miller is the closest to that, but Dennis Miller was an uber intellectual in the 80s. He was so smart, you couldn't understand half the things that he was talking about with all his references. What I liked was his sarcasm. I liked his presence. He just stood there, and his attitude just made me laugh. His attitude of like, yeah, it was something whenever. And whatever. Dana Carvey does a great impression of him. But his sarcasm made me laugh. I loved snarky, sarcastic individuals. My friend Chris Nornberg, the guy I was telling you about, the skater who smoked cigarettes, that's like the first guy that would make me laugh with that snarky sarcasm of because he is a funny guy too. And I've always enjoyed being around people who make me laugh. Not at a comedic level. They're not trying to make me laugh, but they genuinely have like points of view that make me laugh. And those are the friends that I've cultivated. And they all have an interest in comedy. Like they like stand up from wherever they're at too in their own right. But none of us wanted to do it. And then I only got into it because I thought I had enough of a knowledge of it that I thought it'll help promote this band that has a comedic thread that has been working. I get music audiences to laugh. They are way different than a comedy audience.
Right.
It is not the same thing. And it's like basically I'm making a room full of hecklers laugh, but then you get to a room full of like people that paid their tickets and they're dressed up and they're sitting down. It's like, oh, who's this fucking homeless guy on the stage? Whatever. I heard that so many fucking times. But just because I had long hair and a beard and a flannel jacket of some kind, now I'm homeless.
Yeah.
And so I had to get into the world of hack thinking, which is what comedy completely is in my mind. It's that my laundry list of lookalike things that now I can totally hear the comics talking behind my back about like, oh, he's got to go with the lookalike shit. And it's like, yeah, because I'm sorry, you too are part of this world of hack thinking that is the comedian. You're all trying desperately to find something of your own to make people laugh and make it sound like you're so unique and original. And none of us, we're not that unique. We're not that original. We all share that same desperation. And it makes us like kind of, it just makes me, it's why I think there's so many criminal minds amongst it too.
Well, and I think it's different is that most people want to be likable on stage, but I feel like with you, you don't care. Like you don't really care.
I care. I don't care. I want to be likable to the people that I like.
Right. But like if you get an audience and you're paid to do a job, like make people laugh, you're just gonna be you. You're not gonna like.
Well, Nina has the best insight on this. Nina G, one of my best friends. Shout out to Nina G. Yes, yeah, one of my best friends in comedy and life. But she has the best insight into any of my performances. She says, I can tell how much Dave is being paid by his set. Because she knows that if I'm being like, and what that is to me, it's like, it's not that I'm careless and I'm going to throw it away if I'm being paid little, but I will take more chances and fuck around the more that I'm on a show that there's low risk. But if you're paying me like, any amount that's like a decent payday, I'm going to do my best to appeal to that audience and not be trying to, I'm not one of these people that, we see this a lot of times, even from good local pros who perform. And then if the audience isn't to their liking, they then think they have license to like, I'm going to pull a January 6th on them and just, say all kinds of fucking weird shit that I want to just to be provocative.
Well, I remember watching you do stand up and, you talk about, the meaningful Dave, mean Dave. And I always thought you were great. You're like hilarious. And when we did the Foxtail, it was a really small crowd and I loved your attitude because I don't get that same attitude from other comics.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciated it so much. You're like, let them leave. Like, cause those people walked out and I was kind of like, okay, you're like, oh, fuck them, who cares? And I was just like, okay.
And not in a defensive way either.
No, it wasn't. It was just like, we're not going to keep them hostage there.
And because your show it's not the standard show. And the thing that I love an intimate audience more than I love a packed room. Granted, I love a packed room.
Right, of course.
But I'm not I would love a packed room if I'm a name headliner that is trying to put butts in seats headlining a weekend. That's a totally different thing. But I'm not. I'm an anonymous, host, feature, opener, whatever, for whatever, stuff. I have no TV credits that anybody can jerk off to. I'm not. I have nothing that like. The things that people are impressed by really is just either my reputation without knowing me really, or just seeing my set and seeing it work on an audience. Yeah. And even that doesn't last in people's minds.
I mean, I feel like that's what you think, but I mean, most people who've either seen you or watched you, they remember
I make
you.
enough of an impression. I'm not downplaying my reputation at all. What I'm saying is that because this is such a what have you done for me lately type of business, right? Okay, everybody.
Or what have you done?
What have you done for me lately? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
And my goals when I got into it and I saw what people had to do and had to sacrifice and all the fucking horse shit that, nothing makes me fucking more ill than hearing the sanctimonious aspect of like, I've got mouths to feed and I got to do, and applying that to like the pursuit of stand up or the pursuit of anything that's like not a regular 9 to 5 job. I'm like, if you got mouths to feed, guess what? You should probably be focusing on just having a decent, stable job. Maybe, and being a good parent, and being less inclined to think like I have to be so self-indulgent. And I'm doing an impression of somebody who says these things a lot right now. I'm not going to say his name because I don't need to. But I'm also I'm just like it's. I hear his voice whenever it's these people that like to play themselves up like they're I got to go out there on the front lines and be stand up for my country of comedy and blah 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 blah, as if this is some noble pursuit, and it's just another hustle. Well, and I think there's an art to comedy when you do it well, but I think it's very irresponsible if you're sacrificing other people's well-beings in order to do your art or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with doing it and doing it well, or doing enough to pay and take care of people, but you don't need to brag about it. And if you're bragging about it, to me, you're probably not doing it as well as you think you are. Yeah. Because I just saw somebody brag about something recently online, it's it's so funny. Well, they were tooting a horn they don't have, and it wasn't even. I even made a post in response to it about it. And that person liked the post. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about you, motherfucker. Yeah. Like, I'm glad you saw that because it's somebody who I've seen, or not seen, but like I know that they are not. They try to put on a front, right? And to be putting on a front in comedy for anybody's sake other than it's like, don't do it.
It doesn't. I mean, you can see right through it.
Yeah, we got enough used car salesmen in this fucking line of bullshit. So, anyways, it's part of the business. It's part of everyday life. There's people that put on a show at every job or whatever, and it's different with comedy because again, that's the gig, and you see people being successful sometimes who are behind a wall of bullshit, and you see people who are successful who are pretty cool, who are as cool, if not cooler, than they are on stage. Me personally, I just like to have an approach of performing where it's like, I love to perform. I want to love to perform in front of people that are there. However, if you have an audience that's like, for whatever reason, they're not as into you, or they're, if you're feeling they're not, not fully,
feeling you.
You can't take that personally. You have to still relax and find different ways. How many times have you seen a comic even doing a decent set and they're like, so I guess I'm bombing up here. You guys just aren't giving me what I need. But so they start.
You can laugh.
They start getting all shitty, right?
Yeah, you can laugh at this.
I respect an audience's honest response because again, it's one of those things that's telling me where I'm at. Now, do I want to work harder to be? Does it challenge me to want to work harder to make? Yeah, it does. But also at the same time, I'm 47. I got into this kind of late. I was 33. I'm not.
You look great, by the way.
No, thank you. I don't feel great, but
I mean, you don't look 47.
Yeah,
you look like you're easily early 40s, late 30s.
Early 40s,
late 30s.
Yeah. It's it's not helping nothing. It's not like I really. It's not
like you're trying to mac on girls or anything.
No, not at all. I'm like, it's not. There's
no, but you look great, which is cool because when you said what your age was, I was like, damn, you're a lot older than I thought you were.
I'm almost 50,
and you started in 2010, which was 2 years earlier than I started in 2012.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I always thought you were like later, like maybe like earlier than 2010. But now I'm hearing it. I'm like, oh shit, we're like,
it was closer. No, because I remember seeing you around, and I don't know. It's just one of those things where you came into it just as I was starting to make good first impressions.
Yeah, then that's what I was saying.
That's and that goes a long way, because those 2 years were kind of that I was not making as many good first impressions. Those were rough, because I was undoing old habits from music and trying to find better ones to put on this show, this facade.
By the time I met you, you were already producing.
I was getting better at that. Mm-hmm. And it literally, comedy is trying to figure out how to be a sociopath in front of people in putting on a show, no matter what's really going on with you.
100%.
And it's acting.
Oh my gosh, I'm a sociopath.
Yeah, we're all. Yeah, no, that's why comedians. It's like, why do you think every time something bad happens, we think like we need to have a comedy show to pay tribute to it? It's like no one's asking for a fucking comedy. No one's. And I think things like 9/11. Like once 9/11 happened, I remember it was like we have to wait a week. And then Saturday Night Live can come back because we're gonna need to laugh. It's like, no, we don't. Like no, you need it because you need business to run. You need, and comedians need it because if we're at bottom of the barrel comics, we need some people need the money, some people need their egos fed, some people just need to feel like they're still in it and all that. It's just a lot of nonsense, and it should be. It's a silly business, but I love it, and I love taking it seriously to the point of where I'm able to pay my bills, but I'm also not. I know it's not.
You're not looking for this job to pay your bills specifically.
Oh yeah, I am. I wanted to.
Okay.
No, I wanted to, but I wasn't aiming for it. It just started. It just happened that way.
Yeah.
And now it's more like I want to respect it and maintain it. But I'm also in 12-step recovery, which is a big deal for me, because 12-step recovery, I didn't think I would ever be clean and sober also. And that's something that I got. It's been 10 years. I celebrated 10 years in September. So I met you when I met you when I was negotiating with my disease in 2012, because I stopped drinking.
2012.
I stopped drinking for 8 months. And but I was still smoking weed like a chimney, doing shrooms like crazy. But it was like I thought it was helpful. That because I wasn't as appearing to be unmanageable while I was not drinking. And then I celebrated some sets I did in LA by drinking. My buddy had a bottle of I don't know if it was whiskey or rum or whatever, but it wasn't a no situation. We had a good time.
But you had not been drinking for 8 months. I had not been
drinking, and then I was like, let's celebrate. Let me drink.
Oh my god!
And it wasn't like it was fine.
No, it was fine.
But it was the thing with drinking was the unmanageability became more of a factor like once every 1 to 2 months, and I would have an incident that people would hear about and whatever.
They're like, let's go drink.
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not like that. Let's go drink. Nobody really. There would be people that wanted to drink with me, and they're all fucking, messed up themselves. Some of the guys I'm still like Thomas Mayfield. He was one of my big party guys, but I went down that road with him a few times where it's like, man, we're lucky we came back.
Yeah.
And he goes down it a few more times and more. He's doing really well though now. He's moved out to Denver.
Yeah, Redwood City. I remember doing one of his Bobby D's.
Bobby D's, yes.
That was one of the first rooms I got.
That's where a lot of the personalities that I met that informed a lot of like what I do and don't want out of comedy, because I was starting to figure out like how to get more paid gigs, how to sort of maintain friendships, which associations do I think are better than others as far as being healthy. And when I got into 12-step recovery, what became most important is just having a 12-step program that keeps me clean and sober, and that I practice it and the principles to the best of my ability through in my day-to-day life. And the more that I do that, a lot of my comedy decisions are kind of sorted out much easier.
Yeah.
Because I apply my principles in recovery as best I can to comedy. And in doing so, that means that not only do I do comedy to serve myself, but I do it to serve others in terms of like other comics, try to create rooms and spaces that, or not create, but like find rooms and spaces that I can run so that people can learn for themselves to be like the people that were like my local comedic mentors, like DNA, Tony Sparks, another guy who's not around here anymore, but Mike Spiegelman, and a few others who had rooms that when I was like kind of vetted to like do better in their rooms, it gave me kind of the what do you call it, the motivation to just want more and do better, and the validation of like, oh, now I'm a guy who is, like I could go up to the Brainwash in like 2014 to 15.
Before
I could roll up. But I could roll up. I used to be a guy where I'd have to be there early to sign up to be on the thing.
Right.
Then I became a guy later on where it was like I could just roll up and I was just hanging out. I wasn't, whatever. And they'd be like, "You want a set?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I became a guy that could bump into the open mic. That's a good feeling. And then DNA hitting me up to do shows before it wasn't, that wasn't the case when I first started, and having to earn his, respect and now he's a great friend that, we bullshit about a lot of other things. But when I realized is I'm not pursuing comedy, I pursue it to, yes, I wanted to maintain it as a job, but also to be of service to other comedians who are trying to learn and figure things out, because also I just don't dig on the self pursuit so much, because it's too much self will that to get caught up in as an addict and alcoholic, even in recovery. So what's great is that Nina G has provided me with this opportunity since like 2016 of being a part of the Comedians with Disabilities Act, which is something that was started by Michael O'Connell, that is a great collective of comedians with disabilities to help promote comedy, advocacy, disability of a wide variety. And and Nina's carried it on beyond Michael's vision, and I'm part of it. People are like, "Well, what's your disability, Dave? But talking too much or whatever." It's my disability. I didn't know this until Nina researched it. But being an addict or an alcoholic in recovery is covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act as a mental illness. So when she found that out, she knew that she had somebody who she could rely on to be a solid comic, be part of the collective, and help her with some of because she can't do it alone. Just kind of be one of her solid people to rely on, just to kind of help figure it out. Like, what do we do with this? What bounce ideas off of and on? Because it's really all her in many respects. But
Michael.
Michael O'Connell is no longer with us. He died in 2016. No. Yeah, he was a comedian in a wheelchair. They were doing shows and stuff. What the thing was is Nina, he wasn't as able to later in his life, and Nina was like the person that was able to pick up the torch and keep it going.
Yeah.
And now what we're finding, because we've been performing at colleges and stuff all over the country, and meeting other comics who also have disabilities, and I'm trying to. I was talking to her because we met this one comedian. Her name's Alexis. I forget her last name, but she's out in North Carolina, and she came to our college show, was super excited about it. And she's has an apparent disability. She's in a wheelchair, and she invited us to her open mic after the show, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to make it, but then we were able to. And she runs a great open mic that feels like a showcase. All of their open mics, I think, felt like showcases out in North Carolina. They got a great group of comics out there that were all really good. Even their worst ones weren't that bad.
Yeah.
And they have a fun scene, it seems like, with we didn't get to meet all of them, but they were the thing that made me feel most like I was back home was as soon as all of the comedians were done before our sets on the first mic we did, we were at the end. All of them were all outside. As soon as all of that part of the open mic was done, they all went outside and they all took off.
Yeah.
And I was like, now I feel like I'm at home. And we got to perform for the audience that wasn't comedians.
Right.
But we heard there was another open mic too. So obviously, going over for the stage time. But we performed and we met this woman, and I was talking to Nina the other day, and I said, because we also lost a friend recently, Sean Boyles.
That's what I was going to.
Sean Boyles is a good friend, comedian friend, a really good friend of mine, and PX's, and a good dude to so many who came from music as well, played in many bands that were known in the Bay Area and beyond, Lickisto, Insolence, Hellbeard, Zed, and most recently Hazards. But he was he was a great friend, and unfortunately he died October 17th, and he was 49 years old, and Nina's mom died the same day. Nina's mom, who had a health scare in July where she actually flatlined for 4 minutes, And so they were dealing with her situation since July of like trying to figure out where to be, because it kind of affected her mental abilities and stuff. And so they were trying to find a place to keep her. And it was a real big ordeal. And then the same day that Sean died, later that day, Nina's mom, Kathy, died.
That's crazy.
And but it was kind of strange because it just got me thinking over the next few weeks, because we had gigs that we were doing, Nina and I, and we did our North Carolina show, and we met that girl Alexis. And then just recently we were talking, and I'm like, we need to start thinking, like, because I'm 47, Nina's 50. And
you guys look amazing.
That's great. That's fine. Again, looks are, that's nice to hear. But I'm thinking, like, just like what could happen to Sean could just as easily happen to one of us. And I'm thinking, like, we need to start thinking about what's next for Comedians with Disabilities Act to keep it going after us.
Right.
Because we're only so much. And I know that what you've done is something that Michael never conceived of, probably going forward after his death. So we need to start planting the seeds of doing the same.
Thinking of the future.
And what I was thinking was, I'm looking at what people are doing with, like, Don't Tell Comedy and some of these other comedy collectives that they create chapters in other areas with people that do. And I said, we need to do the same with Comedians with Disabilities Act. Looking at Alexis at that show, being so excited to have us on her mic. And I'm like, I think we can find people all over the place to be like, just set up some guidelines of what it means to be part of the Comedians with Disabilities Act and how to set up your own chapter. And then not only that, we create a network of comedians that then can travel and hook up with each other and keep this community of disability and advocacy going beyond us.
Which I've done the Comedians with Disability show. They did one at Foxtail.
Yeah.
And then back to Sean.
Yeah.
I remember that you said you threw your chip in there.
I threw my chip, my 9-year chip in his coffin at the funeral, because I do get my chips. I'm not. What's funny today? Somebody was asking, like, I haven't gotten my 10-year chip yet because I haven't been at a chip meeting.
Yeah.
Which I'm
But you're over 10 years, right?
I'm 10. I hit 10 years in September.
Oh, in September.
So I just celebrated it, but. Yeah. And I'll get my chip if I happen to be at a chip meeting. But, like, I think my stepsister was asking me about it. She was like, "Well, did you get your 10-year chip?" And I'm like, "I'll get it." And she's like, "Well," she's like, "Well, don't you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want it." But I said, "But my chip, the real chip, is in my manageable day-to-day life. It's in my sister being so supportive of me. It's in having friends like you and people that
remind
find value in my company, and that can be of service to.
Right.
You know, I get to live a life that is manageable, getting to do something for work that I love. I love it both as a job and as an art form. It wasn't the dream per se, but it's damn close enough.
That's very meaningful.
It is.
Yeah.
And meaning Dave's short for meaningful Dave.
Yeah.
And I still I've gotten recently now, I've actually been dragged back to music. A very talented friend of mine, Frank Marchi, Marshy, I don't know how it's pronounced, but he went by Frank Ripple and all these other names. Ramon Salcido. He's a bass player from, like, bands in the West Bay Doom Riders collective of bands like Plutocracy and Agents of Satan, and not no less, but he played in a lot of Calmex and the Riff Merchants. He's a sick bass player, one of the best musicians that I'm friends with. But I love his music. And he ended up needing he needed a drummer, and then it turned into being a bass player, basically to help round out his live version of his current projects, and the name of the group is called Cold Iron Hands. And we are playing our first show January 13th of 2024 at the First Church of the Buzzard in Oakland, and it's with a lineup of some good bands too. So I'm pretty stoked. Because
when's the last time you performed in
live music was like 2012, I think.
Oh, okay.
12 or 13, I can't remember. It was either at the last time I performed a set that I was proud of was with this guy Charlie Winfrey on drums, doing my one-man band. Called I Think There's Some Damage. We did it at, you remember the old dispensary in San Jose, where
Treehouse.
The Treehouse dispensary,
I remember.
With all the
snakes and shit.
Hella shady, it felt hella shady. and we would do the comedy show, and then they would have music. Well, we got to play a show there.
Oh, that's
it was a lot of fun.
Funny.
And then they liked us too because it was stony stuff. And then I did another show with a now canceled comedian, Keith D'Souza, on drums, who couldn't play drums, but he told me he could. Now he has rhythm, but he didn't know how to play drums. And I played a set of two long songs with him on drums at the Caravan. That might have been the last show because that might have been in 2013. I don't remember exactly.
So then Rachel has seen that.
Oh, Rachel's seen me perform in a lot of bands. She's seen Bad Touch.
Nice.
She saw Bad Touch play an awesome show at the Caravan where Chris Shapakazi and another comedian who no longer goes by her previous name, but her name's Zoe something. Because I forget her last name, but she goes by Zoe now. She's a trans woman. But when I was doing comedy, this is 2011, we did a Bad Touch, or 2010. I did a Bad Touch set. We had a song called Not Like You, where we would do a breakdown where we would do something different every time to prove that we were a band. That's the name of the song.
Not Like You.
Not Like You. We're not like you. We're different. Those were the lyrics to the song. It's, again, stupid music. But it was inspired by bands that would always see us and be like, yeah, we're just like you. And we would see their band and we're like, we're nothing like you. What are you talking about? And so we did this song that was on purpose, literally, to try and show how we're not like you. And I did a little mini comedy showcase in the middle of the song.
In the middle of the song.
What we did was we would break it down, and we would go down to like a real light background sound, and we had Chris Shapakazi do a set.
What?
And then we had Zoe do her set, and Chris got him riled up. Chris ended up doing his set like Val Kilmer is Jim Morrison in The Doors, where like the way I remember his delivery, and I'm like, he sounds like Jim Morrison saying like, "You're all a bunch of fucking slaves." Like, and the thing is he riled up the audience at the Caravan somehow. I remember it because and the reason why I even know how I really remember Rachel, because I saw Rachel there. She was the cool lady working there.
Yeah.
There used to be a
she
previous
was the booker.
Well, there was a previous booker who was a cunt.
Oh,
and I'm happy to use that word. No, it was a different woman.
Okay.
It wasn't the owner. She knew who it was. I forget what her name was, and I used to hate that chick. And when I met Rachel, I'm like, that's not the same woman, because this one's way cooler.
Yeah,
she's
I
super
fucking
nice.
love Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel's awesome. And I remember that's when I knew that she used to do comedy, because Chris rolls in there and they recognize each other.
Oh.
And I didn't know that.
And Chris wasn't part of the band. He was just doing a quick set in the middle.
This was, again, I had 3 comics that were going to do it, but Roman Leo dropped off last minute.
Oh, Roman?
Typical comic.
Yeah.
It was just going to be Chris and Zoe. So we did this. We do the beginning of the song. We get to the breakdown. We have Chris do his set, and then we have Zoe do her set. And Zoe also had her acoustic guitar with her that she was playing in key.
How cute.
To because we were in the key of F or whatever. And Zoe was so concerned about it. And I'm like, just play in the F key. You're going to be fine. And she totally was.
Yeah.
And she's kind of strumming some notes while doing her one-liners, and her one-liners killed the whole fucking thing.
You guys didn't have this on video or anything by any chance?
No, I wish we did.
I know.
I wish we did. But that was the thing that I loved about Bad Touch, was that we created real moments.
Yeah,
I have stuff that's on video and stuff. I've never looked at it.
It's not the same.
Well, it's not that it's not the same. It's great. It's just like we live in this age of everybody wants something just eagerly to exploit it, and I think that eagerness has ruined a lot of good stuff of just being in the moment. And that's why bands are not as good. That's why comedy's not as good. That's why everything is not as good. The only thing that is kind of as good, but it's like there's overkill because we've flooded the market with it, is movies. And because movies are
they're getting
movies
old.
are designed to be, well, I don't think they're getting old.
Not getting old, but they're running out of ideas. I feel like
they've always felt that way, but it's not that they're running out of ideas. I think the whole medium is set up to where it becomes an adversary to creativity. It's never, the movie business is one of these things where it's you've got to. I like how David Fincher calls it. It says it's like you're painting with a paintbrush that's 100 yards long, and in order to paint, you have to direct 80 different people to move that brush, and that's what it feels like in making a movie, because there's so many variables and factors you have to involve that you can have a creative vision, but it has to get through so many different battles in order to make it. and everybody has different ways of doing it.
I mean, I can understand with Visions, but then when they make like Fast and Furious Part 12,
those are cash cows. And you want to know who to blame the audience. This is where I was at with Bad Touch. When people would bitch that like, oh, bands are not all this, that, and the other, and I'm like, well, you're the ones going to the fucking shows.
Oh no, I'm not.
So if you don't like these shows, then stop going to them.
Yeah, no.
You don't like these movies, stop going to them.
But now my kids love them.
But people go to them. They love crap. This Five Nights at Freddy's. People went to that shit. My kid likes it. And
my kid watched it.
And then they bitch about the Marvels, and the Marvels was a fine entry in the MCU. But
I heard those were good too.
They're all right. It's also like, but Marvel movies shouldn't be the only game in town either. And I love the MCU, but I also think they are kind of gotten a little too big for their britches because they thought they could just keep doing things the way they were doing them, and it's like. No. You hit with this shit, and if there's anything I've ever learned in any trend with art forms and show business, is you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You need to kind of put new spins on it, and there were ways they could have done it right after Endgame, but they but also, how do I know? I've never made a movie that
Yeah.
So I don't fucking know, and I'm like,
I liked Endgame.
And I'm still watching. Oh yeah, Endgame was amazing.
Infinity
but I'm saying
War?
all of these. But I also don't put them on a pedestal either, where I think they're so great, because there's a lot of people like, oh my god, there's fucking.
No, I mean,
and I love these movies, but also at the same time, when I went to, then these people are like, oh, the Eternals was trash, and I'm like, the Eternals was fine. I like the Eternals too. I like all of them. I like the worst
you're
of them.
You're a big movie buff. I know you watch a lot of movies.
But I like the comic book movies, even the worst entries, just because. That's what comic books were.
Yeah.
Comic books were not like every issue was fucking amazing. No.
Yeah.
It's like they build, there's these ones, some are weak, some are this, some are that, and you just take them all in. And I like just having them. And that's what the MCU is, and by all rights should be. But because they rely on them, every one of them being a blockbuster, home run, grand slam, that's no way. You can't do that, because that's not how the movie business works. And it shouldn't work that way. Because also you're now making it so that there's only one game in town, and you can't have good artistic films that don't rely on box office to be made, such as Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Oppenheimer is great for cinema just because that was a Christopher Nolan movie that was very successful and a rated R movie, but not every one of those movies does that. And the fact that movie did that I couldn't believe it. My niece went to see it. And she's your typical Gen Z fucking gal. And what did she think? She was like, yeah, I didn't think it was like, I love what my friend Molly, she was like, yeah, it was mid. And that's exactly what she felt about it. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't for you. I said, you saw the Barbie movie too, right? She goes, yeah, I like that. I'm like, no shit. Because that was made for you.
Yeah.
And
I still have not watched the Barbie movie.
It's not bad. You would enjoy it. It's not.
I'd rather watch it when it's like, I don't know, free on Netflix.
I've seen it twice. It's not, it's worth seeing in the cinema too. It's different too, because I grew up with sisters, so I'm familiar with Barbie, and I'm familiar with and I like the different.
See, I think maybe that's why. I think that's why you like it.
That's not why I like it.
No, I mean, like you have the experience of having sisters and then playing with Barbies.
I could be open to it.
I didn't even fucking get. I'm so traumatized with my upbringing of not getting a Barbie.
No, Nina hated it for what it represented.
I haven't even watched it yet. I'm waiting for it to be free on Netflix, and then I'll watch it.
You'll dig it though, because it's a whole it has a whole I want to say kind of indicts not an indictment, but it takes on the issues of the patriarchy of women's issues throughout it, and what Barbie is represented throughout of it, both negative and positive.
That's good.
It's
very women empowering.
Very well thought out movie that is humorous and insightful, and you'd have to be kind of a prick to not enjoy it on some level.
Yeah, I think I am.
I saw creepy, lonely dudes going into that movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just to look at girls.
I don't even watch like chick flicks. Like I have a confession. I'm like, I don't watch any type of. I mean, I know this sounds bad, but I don't really watch a lot of comedy. I don't watch I watch horror movies 24/7. Like I just watched a movie last night, Uncle Peckerwood, which is like something on, I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon. And I was like, okay. It was stupid. It was a stupid movie, but it had a good story to it. And then I tried watching like something that was like not my genre, and I can't even like stomach like 10 minutes of it. I'm like, nah. but a terrible horror movie,
Yeah.
I'll watch it to the end. So I don't know.
Five Nights at Freddy's is a terrible horror
Wait, that's
movie.
That's not a horror movie though, right?
Yeah,
It's
technically
an animated.
it is. No, technically it is. Even though it's PG-13, it's a horror movie.
Is it?
There was some blood in it. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
There was
My kid
killings.
saw it. She said she liked it.
There was killings. It's a horror movie for kids. It's kind of like Megan. But
Nice.
Megan was actually pretty good. Even
Wait,
though
Megan
that was,
isn't the doll?
Yeah,
okay.
Megan's a horror movie for kids. They're making Blumhouse is smart. They're making PG-13 horror films because they're trying to make like movies that are like scary enough to qualify for the genre of horror, but have humor and
there's a good target audience.
light enough. Well, that's because families.
And
Everybody
they're gonna
aims
grow.
for the PG-13 thing. It's about just putting family butts in seats because there's more people. There's more
And
butts
families.
in seats when a family goes together.
Right.
More popcorn sold. More Coke sold than there is if just like me going to the movies.
Right.
You can't just build everything on
Something
the
that you
lonely
like.
the lonely males with no immediate family.
All right. Well, on that note, Meaningful David,
Yeah.
Mean Dave, it's
PX,
such a pleasure.
PX Floro.
Yeah,
What
such
does
a
the
pleasure.
PX, what does the PX stand for?
It stands for Paula Saviera.
Paula Saviera.
Yeah, you said it right. It's like Xavier, but with an A at the end.
Yeah, Saviera.
Like you listen to how I said it, and you said it right.
People don't give me credit for listening.
No,
sometimes.
but you like I've had this name forever, right? And people be like, I'll say it just like that. And they're like, Paula Xavier.
That's why you use the PX because my last name's Gordillo, but everybody sees the name and they're like Gordillo, Gordillo, and I'm like, it's never mind. We'll go by Mean Dave.
Yeah.
Go by Mean Dave.
I-
'Cause you're a fucking idiot.
I didn't even know
Who
that was your
also
last
asks,
name.
Why do you call yourself Mean Dave? I'm like, I guess I'm just a nice guy because I fucking love you, bro.
Yeah, and
You're so great.
And I love you, Mean Dave,
I love
and,
you,
and
PX.
I want you to tell the audience because this is gonna air tonight. Because today,
Oh, it airs
it's
tonight?
It's gonna air
Whoa.
tonight. It's
You have
Black
to-
Friday. We
holy shit.
purposely wanted to give a tribute to Sean. You know what I mean?
Fuck
'Cause
yeah, Sean
That was
Boyles.
when we figured it out. We're like, hey, you want
Rest
to do
in peace.
podcasts?
Yeah, man. Sean
I love
Boyles.
that man.
Yeah, I love
he's
him.
a legend.
He is awesome.
So I want everyone to find out where can they find out more about you. Where's your upcoming shows? Because this will be.
You don't need to find me. But no, if you're so itching after all my blathering, all the yammer that I've been doing today, and you're just like, man, I just want to see what this motherfucker is. You can follow me on Instagram at mean_Dave. If you just search for Mean Dave, you'll find me. I'm the first one that pops up. I also have a YouTube podcast. I only put it on YouTube, really. It's called Meaningful Times with Friends. We put that out every 2 weeks.
Is it video and audio?
It's just video, but you can put it on and listen to it just as much. But it has a lot of visual jokes in there.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say
because
people are more visual and they like that.
I'm inspired by the conversation, so I put a lot of visual elements with it too.
You add like your own.
Yeah, like some images and stuff. But it's and it's a show. It's just me and these friends that I talked about on this podcast. It's me and three of them. And we just talk about different topics that are random. They're never really like that current.
So there's no like time it comes out.
We're like an anti-relevant podcast. we talk about things that people haven't thought about in years.
Right.
Old issues. Rarely do we talk about a new issue, and if it is, like, as soon as we talk about it, something happens, like in the editing process, that like something will happen that'll completely negate what we're talking about.
What's it called again?
Meaningful Times with Friends.
Meaningful Times
Yeah.
with Friends.
If you just look up Mean Dave,
It'll
Mean
pop
Dave
up.
Comedian on YouTube,
I'm gonna subscribe.
you'll find my channel. Yeah,
gonna
you'll find my
subscribe.
channel, and all the episodes are there. And we post a new episode usually like once every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, because we're old and it's hard to get us together on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then at Mean Dave Time on Twitter, I'm also, or X they call it there. And then as far as shows, I perform all over the Bay Area. I have one regular monthly show at Vinny's Bar and Grill.
I was gonna say, how long is that? How long
That's been like going like 10 years now.
Yeah, congratulations.
It's Vinny's Bar and Grill every third Monday of the month. It's free,
Livermore?
7:30 in Concord.
Concord.
And then we'll be wrapping up. Like you can still come out on the first, third, and if there's a fifth Thursday to Murphy's Law in Sunnyvale. But that bar will be closing in some point next year. It's going to be turned into a restaurant, so we won't have many shows left there. But until we get the Nano, every first, third, and if there's a fifth Thursday, we have a comedy show at Murphy's Law in Sunnyvale. Our next show's coming up is November 30th.
So you said first, third, and fifth?
First, third, and fifth Thursdays of the month are Murphy's Law in Sunnyvale, and we have great shows. PX has done it a couple times.
The last time I brought my kids.
You brought your kid. Well, they weren't allowed.
They weren't allowed in the bar. They were outside.
You were able to do your set and bounce really quick.
Yeah,
yes.
Which you know what? I have to thank you again for you. I forgot who else was with you, but you guys went outside to check on my kids.
Yes, make sure.
Which was awesome.
Well, it's not an unsafe place, but it's like
well, my kids they go to school in Sunnyvale, which is even more funny. Yeah. But that evening, it's so memorable because my kids got to experience, and I was being heckled by a lady that a comic brought.
Yeah,
and then I mean, it was fine. It was all fine until I went outside, and my kids were like, "Mom, there was a lady that kept calling you a dyke." And they're like, "What is that?" And I was like,
gotcha. Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, this is going to be an interesting conversation on the drive home." But I explained it very well.
Yeah. Learn.
I explained it well. I was like, "Hey, you know, Grandma." Yeah. I was like, so,
you know, carpets, people eat them.
Yeah. And they handled it well. I mean, I think at that age, I think they were like, okay, they're like 15 and 14 and 14. I just want to say they were like 10.
They should have known.
Yeah, they should have. Yeah.
I remember I had a gay aunt. Okay, I had a gay aunt, didn't even know exactly what the slurs were for them.
And I told them we can't say that.
Yeah, you're not supposed
I was like, you're not supposed to say that word.
Unless it's done in, if you have a friend that's, all in good humor or whatever. But my aunt, my Aunt Edith, who was also one of the funniest members of my family, who passed away in 2010 just before I started comedy. And she was a big influence on, I would say, my sense of humor in many respects. Not like consciously, but just... She was a life of the party type of gal, but like was very meticulous in how she kind of like would structure social kind of things. There's two people who remind me of her, and that's Dudley Moore, the actor from Arthur, and Martin
Short.
Martin Short. They remind Martin Short more. Like he reminds me, and even looks like her. Like the haircut, that was my aunt's haircut.
Yeah,
like she has the same kind of bob or whatever that he has, But she was we called her Foofy. Her name's Edith, but we always called her Foofy because they told me they would try to get me to call her Goofy, and I couldn't say Goofy at the time. I would say Foofy, and so that just became her nickname. She was Foofy.
And their grandma is actually a lesbian. Is a lesbian, and I was like, Grandma Rose, because her name is feminine, but she was masculine, lesbian, and they're like, and I was like, and then your auntie Jessica and Aunt Jalissa, and she goes, and I was like, Aunt Jalissa, and they're like, oh, so they just look a little bit more masculine. And I was like, that's but they don't like it when you call them the word.
It's a slur for all lesbians. But they tend to use it more for the masculine ones.
And then that's when they learned the word. They already knew what lesbians were, but
it's funny.
That specific
it's
word.
Funny. I was in junior high when I became conscious of my aunt's sexual orientation, more or less, because I knew that she was always with women. I just never thought about it.
Right.
And
because it was natural. It was just normal.
Well, it was just part of life.
Yeah.
And I remember repeating, oddly enough, one of Robert Smigels's The Bears sketches. It was on Saturday Night Live, and I was talking about, it was this great sketch. They got these guys, they're all about the Bears or whatever, and they're going through, and and they said, well, what about, they're about to play those 49ers. You know what they got out there? And they were like, what? And he goes, the queers. And I said that. And I saw the look in my aunt's face, and she didn't say anything. She wasn't. I just saw a little tinge of
disappointment.
And not even like so much disappointment. It was just a slight hint of hurt.
Yeah.
Because she's seeing and this is again in
and
the
how old were you?
Late 80s.
Yeah, so you're little.
Not little. I was in junior high.
Yeah. Oh, junior high.
And what I saw was like kind of what went from like what sounded funny, because I wasn't laughing at like so much being gay as much as the sound of those guys' voices saying duck warriors whatever, because it rhymed with the Bears whatever. And then I just see in my aunt's face, and I'm like, and it dawns on me, I'm like, she's gay. And I gotta like piece it together that like what words mean, how they hurt, all that kind of stuff, because she wasn't like she could totally laugh at herself, but it was understanding where kind of where the angle of that joke was.
Right.
So I got to see like how people's attempts at humor that even like works on TV and all that stuff. Watching a joke that didn't age well right then and there.
Yeah.
You know, and just within my own family fold.
Did you guys ever have the conversation with your aunt? Or like
not like a hardline conversation. No, it was one of those. We talked issues later. Yeah. Like it wasn't. Oddly enough, in all my family, we never really... But at that
age, as a teenager, you like noticed that it hurt.
Well, I noticed it. Like... My mom, and it's weird how I was introduced through stuff more through finding out myself and then having like the talk of stuff afterwards. It was never like that bold and direct. Unfortunately, a lot of my, I love my mom and love my dad, love my stepmom, love my stepdad. A lot of my upbringing was more like I would stumble onto something and then there would be the talk after that. It wasn't direct. And in doing so, I think...
Oh, you had good parents.
I mean, they did a great job for dealing with the situation was, but they also created a lot of situations that were... Like, I would definitely do my best. I've never been a parent, so I can't say.
Yeah.
But I do know I've seen parenting where people have directly addressed certain things, talking to kids, not like they're adults, but giving them the benefit of the doubt of like they have the capability of understanding certain things rather than tiptoeing around things and letting people find things on their own and then having to play damage control with the information afterwards. Yeah. So my mom did kind of, I think she stepped in a few times, but like I never had like a direct, like, birds and the bees kind. I remember what my mom's description of what an orgasm was like. It's like a sneeze. And I was like, a sneeze? What the fuck is like, what the fuck is going on?
She probably heard that thing like a sneezing is an orgasm.
Nothing helps. And it's a woman trying to talk to a young boy about what these things are. And it's like, my dad never talked to me about this kind of stuff. They were just uncomfortable. And these are baby boomers.
Yeah.
Those are the real boomers, you know, as far as like in upbringing. So none of these, there's no textbook on raising children. I just found that like the more that you're comfortable within yourself, you're able to kind of like talk to your kids about what's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I just, my parents, there was a lot more, there was stuff that they were great about. They were more, and this is typical of their generation, they were more about trying to instill the value of like, hard work and go to school and do your homework and all this bullshit. That when I've looked at it back on it, I'm like, not one of those things is necessary. Not that it didn't help. They were trying to instill a discipline in me that was somewhat there, but what was not there, my dad is his own boss. He runs his own company.
Right.
He's never been a good student, and it's because he has trouble taking orders from people. But he figured shit out a lot on his own. He got into the business of insurance. That shit is boring as fucking shit.
Yeah,
he loves it. He loves the business of insurance. He runs his own insurance administrators company, him with his partner, and they're incredibly successful. And you don't do that shit by being dumb. I know a lot of dumb people. Yeah. And I'm like, dumb people just aren't, it's like you'd rather take those orders. I'm one of those dumb people myself. When people tell me like, "Oh, you're very smart," I'm like, I can articulate shit. I can talk a good game. I understand stuff and I see through things. But what I don't have the ability a lot in many respects is like to take that information and like figure out a way to like predict, benefit this, that, or the other to where it's like I can make something out of it.
You have a little bit of that because, I mean, the idea of you thinking about the Disabilities Act in the future.
That's
like
that's
a little bit of
that's an idea
method.
I had at 47 after lots of failures.
But you inspired me. Like hearing you talk about that. Like I run these rooms, and if anything were to happen to me,
that's what you're doing. Well, but you're also running things. Similar principle. Well, that's just keeping in mind of our age.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Life is short. Life is short.
Trust me, somebody else will come in and swoop up your room.
No, but I don't want someone to do that when I'm gone. Like I don't want it to be like this big old like
we witnessed
debauchery.
That.
You know what I mean? When I die, and
I don't think anybody's necessarily gonna be fighting. Like it'll probably
they're
be
not gonna be fighting over it. But they might just
will fucking try to.
They might just
swoop
run
up
it down. They might just like run it down to the ground, and that's the thing I don't want. I don't want anyone to run it down to the ground. You know what I mean? Like that's what I don't want. But I mean, just like I said. You inspired me. That small little conversation that you said, I was like, fuck, I should think about that.
It's more or less just considering that the Comedians with Disabilities Act is an idea that's bigger than us.
Yeah.
And that and that there are people that are starting to kind of pick up on that, but I'm like, why not do our best to create a brand that we can extend to other people. So and looking at the model of what Don't Tell Comedy does, where they set up their shows, and it's not like we're gonna, Don't Tell is a very successful model that I saw it at its start. I've done their shows when they were starting out, and people that I didn't even know, and then watched as it grew with different people that I do know who run those shows and stuff. And it's a big snob fest too, because they're like, little try to be a little cliquey cool kids club with who books it, but in different areas, they have, they plant the seed with different comics to run their own. And it's a very smart, way of doing something. And I mean, they're basically growing like a disease does in your body. And so,
disease.
and so that's where I was like, we can do the same. And it won't be to the extent of like, you never know what can happen, but we can do something similar that's independent, that invests in the people, because that and inspires the people with disabilities who want to do comedy, who are doing comedy, to create something that is inherently of the disability community, and that way it's like, and it's not so much of this legacy thing. Again, it's being of service, which is exactly what, again, a core principle of my program. And it's more so because Nina's put so much work into this, and I've been a part of it and put work into it. But it's like, I want to see it. I want to see it do what Nina did for Michael. Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see that catch on, and I want to see it grow so that it's like, wow, look at what's going on without even us, having to make it happen.
Right.
And I think it's possible. I think it's just, you just ignite a fuse and let it burn.
Goes.
And so that's I don't think it's so much of like those are those things that, I can have a good idea here and there. And I've been in a lot of bands. I wasted a lot. I don't say wasted, but I put a lot of energy and a lot of my intelligence into my band creativity. This is the funniest thing. One of my earliest bands is a band called Snowy Plover, which I love. I love all my bands, really, even the ones that were like Snot Locker and that I was in. But the first band that I truly enjoyed the music was this band called Snowy Plover with some of my friends, and I was the big enabler. I made that band. I was the Sean Boyles. We were talking earlier about how Sean was kind of like the guy that enabled the band to happen. Well, I was the guy at the time, even though I was the youngest. And the guys that were in the band were kind of like, they kind of lorded over my perception of them, and sort of like, like, yeah, Dave, that's okay, but like it should be like this or whatever, like kind of giving me these notes on like, well, you know what? I didn't realize and have more confidence in the fact that I'm the guy that's making this all fucking work. So we can go my way or the highway, which I should have probably done a little more. And I did go my way sometimes, and they just had to go along with it. But in looking back on it, what's funny is I did all the mixing for all our demos and all this other shit from our 4 tracks. And just recently, 2 of the guys that were in the band, just like one of them hit me up, and then he inspired the other one because he was checking it out too. They listened to one of our old demos, and they were like, dude, I just listened. I was like, it's fucking incredible, man. I can't believe you. I'm like, oh, just now you're fans of the band. I guess I'm just way ahead of my time. I don't know. I'm like,
you're like, that's like 10 years old.
I said, no, it's more than that. It's from the mid 90s. I was like, I'm like, well, I'm glad you like it now. Could have used your support back then a little more, but I'm like, that's great that you're a fan of it now. And it's I said, yeah, because I made all that stuff. Anything that I've been a part of, I want to be a fan of as well. And if I'm not feeling right or 100% about something, then I probably shouldn't stick with it. And that's kind of been my formula, is like, it's got to feel like me. And that's that's kind of what's different with comedy too, is I do need to feel like my act is me. And then when I have ideas, like when it comes for like writing material, that's why I like doing my material. I don't like if I really love my jokes, they stick around. Like I have jokes that are years old, not because I think like, oh, I don't need to write new jokes. I love writing new jokes. It's just, it's hard to get inspired with them when I don't just have ideas and think like I'm desperate to like make everything a fucking joke.
Right.
I want to make them memorable. So I see your kids are moving around, and you gotta.
I don't know. I'm like, what are they doing? Are they actually cleaning?
They were.
Right
I
now?
saw them do some cleaning.
Taking out some trash,
move some stuff around.
I had to lay the smack down on the fucking room cleaning thing. They hate me right now.
Right on.
They're just like,
look, see, they got look at that.
You're
doing
a
a good
devil,
job.
Mom.
Oh yeah, look at that. So
I'm all wrong broom. Just kidding.
It looks sad. It looks so sad.
Well, thank you so much for doing the podcast. If anyone wants to find out more about Mean Dave, be sure to check him out, mean_Dave. You can Google him. You can also see him Meaningful Times with Friends. Right? Yep. And then you can find out more about any of the stuff that I post at pxcomedy.org. You can also follow me on all platforms, pxcomedy. Other than that, any last words? Anything you want to tell our audience? Because this is the Pretty Extreme podcast.
Got you. Well,
I like I said, you're the first person I didn't ask what's extreme, because everything that you're just like spewing out, I was that's hellish.
I'm not even extreme. I'm extremely boring. Yeah, I don't not extreme for extreme's sake. I don't know. What's extreme, more or less? I think we need to be more extremely compassionate, extremely 100%. Empathetic, and extremely loving.
That's what I've been saying.
And extremely generous and extremely giving in more ways of just than just looking to argue with each other. I don't know. It's one of those things where now we've been conditioned so much to like pick sides on anything.
Yeah, no.
And think we know everything.
Yeah, no, we don't know anything.
The human condition is a complex, group of things, and it's never just what you think it is. And so it's like, yes, it's important to hear people out and to try to stop bad people and all that kind of shit, but also understand that people are people, and that part of what makes monsters is also like they're also partly human, and you can demonstrate levels of humanity in some of the ugliest things in the world. That's part of what our problem is, I feel like, as a species right now. It's like we see what's going on in certain parts of the world, and it's like it's easy to just sit there and like think like, oh, they better stop doing that, or oh, that's this, that's that. And I'm like, do we really know what's going on? No. I don't, and I don't pretend to. And all I know is, I don't like seeing people hurt. I don't like seeing people in pain. I think there's a lot more going on than I know about, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what any solutions are at, or that I know that, because I don't. I don't pretend to, it's the same thing when it comes to our community of stuff, of the comedy community, because we have so much ugly sides in the comedy community. It's very easy to just, make blanket judgments, and I've had the displeasure of being friends with people who've had all kinds of bad behavior be called out for, which was necessary, I think. Mm-hmm. And that's right, with you was one of them. I remember you told me one time, you're like, there's going to be a cancellation of a comic, and and I don't want to say their name. I'm like, give me one clue. And you gave me one clue, and I'm like, it's this person. And you were like, how did you guess that? And I'm like, I know this scene. I'm like, I can name that rapist in one note.
Call it a mile away.
And it's not like I don't pride myself on it, but that's that gift, the thing of like being able to kind of see and survey things. It's one of the things that really annoys me in the comedy community when somebody recently asked this in the Barry Comedy Network, when they were somebody who's a comic who's been around, who's got a reputation, and was asking who books a local show that's pretty much a local institution of comedy that like is very easy for them to find out.
Right.
But they had to ask the Bay Area Comedy Network.
Oh no!
And it's probably because they saw that I was on the show this past week.
Yeah.
And
this person has 100 comments already?
No, it wasn't that many comments. Nobody wanted to answer their question because I think nobody wanted to put it on. Nobody wanted to be the person that like put this booker in the like, because everybody wants to leave it alone. And then one person responded who works at the place, and I was like, the most appropriate person was the one who told them and how to put them in touch. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, there are so many ways that you could have figured that.
Yeah, you could probably Google
without
just Google
having to, not even Google. It's like this comic is fairly self-absorbed, and that's where I'm like, when you're so self-absorbed, you can't even figure out through some basic investigation who is running a very well-known
Well, you know
show.
what's crazy? I know
he has friends that were in the air. That's like you could just ask these people that you're close with,
that you're friends,
and
that
they
you're
would have
literally
told
mutual
you.
friends
But you
with.
had to put it out to the whole thing. Mainly, I don't know why. And again, it's like it's just this whole thing, like this decree from on high, because this person does think they're like somebody better than they are, and they're good, but they're also like, you ain't as good as you think you are.
Well, I mean, I kind of want to circle back with what you were saying, like, you know, compassion, empathy, like honestly, a lot more
things
love.
that comics aren't capable of in many respects. Because we need free speech.
Well, and I feel like we went to a certain point of our lives, like, you know, people are constantly dying, but I feel like, you know, they always say, like, once you get to a certain age, like you see more people pass away. And just yesterday, I know 2 people that passed away. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, it's crazy. And I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing in comedy in my life with my kids, like, I want to make sure that I did everything. You know what I mean? I did everything that I could.
You do what you can. I mean, do what you want to do as much as you can. But it's you know, remember, life. We're just specks of dust in this world, man. And it's important. I think the great thing I'm feeling these days is like my ego in check. Yeah. Because I you know, never thought of myself as an egotistical person, but then when I started really looking at all of my creative ventures and like a lot of what I did, and I'm like, I was I did have quite the ego. Yeah. And I wish I could have found these principles in my recovery a little earlier in my life. Maybe.
But there's a reason why you're finding it out now.
No, not even that. I mean, maybe I don't. That's one thing I love about being in recovery is I don't need a grand theme to like make my life explainable. I don't need my life to be a movie in order to understand it or even really understand it. I had to explain to my dad not too long ago. He was feeling all bummed out on Father's Day, and I had to console my dad. My dad, who's like, you know, been kind of a big adversary in my life when I was growing up, but he's been more of an ally in my life since my early 20s, after I kind of put him in check, and early to late. But we started having a much better understanding of each other like around my 21st birthday, because I've always knew there was a part of my dad I loved and liked. I mean, I love my dad, I love my dad, but there was a part of my dad that I liked, but it was he would rarely show it because my dad is, you know, from his upbringing or whatever, he's kind of an insecure dude in his own person as a personality, and he isolates a lot. He likes to we have a lot of things in common that he would not admit to. Yeah. But we are very similar. Right. We're both dicks.
I mean, it's your dad.
And it's just like my grandfather too. I come from a long line of isolated assholes. Yeah. And I imagine there's more too. And trying to help my dad understand that, like, I don't sit here in judgment of his role in my upbringing anymore. I used to point to it quite a bit. And there are factors that totally feed into my personality of how things went about or whatever. What I don't do now is sit here
and hold it against
judgment of him as a result, because he is, I don't want to say like, oh, he made up for it or anything else like that. It's like, no, my dad is truly a guy that I enjoy being around. I enjoy spending time, even when he's in his most dickish mood. Yeah. I've always loved being around my mom and my stepdad. Yeah. Even when my stepdad's being a little fucking much, but no, my stepdad's because he became later in life, he became a little more ornery, but that was my rock growing up. Yeah. He was the guy that I really looked up to, and then I learned more how fallible he was when I became an adult. And my dad, as I'm learning that, my dad kind of came into the fold as the guy that was my rock in my adulthood, and it's just strange that they never stopped being my parents. Yeah. All
I don't
four
think
of
they
them.
ever do.
No, some do. But but when I look at them, I mean that because you grow up and then you see them as people. You know, it depends on your whole up. I mean, it's different for everybody. But I know that I saw them because they were always inspiring, no matter what. They never gave up on themselves. They were always improving their station in life. They were always like, because these were people, my mom and my stepdad, they never thought they would make it above minimum wage kids. And then they ended up going to college and getting their masters while working, at different times, and would help each other. And then they improved their livelihoods and work. And then they retired successfully. Yeah. And they overcame other stuff too in older age. My dad was a bankrupt alcoholic when he was divorced when my mom divorced him. But then he built himself back up slowly, met my stepmom, and little by little worked again for one company, and then decided I want to work for myself, and started his own company, taking a risk and gambling on himself, and then making that company way more successful than the other company that he worked for was, to where they ended up buying that company just recently.
Yeah.
And to see
Sound like a proud child.
I am.
Yeah.
No, in many ways I am, because
That's good.
very easily I've seen other people turn their backs on their parents for less.
Yeah.
And it's not that I, don't get me wrong. I had my issues with them at times too, but I can look at them today and be like, you're truly people that I enjoy, not just being their child, but I truly embrace and enjoy them as people. And I love spending time with them when I can. I love, going and doing things, and the fact that they enjoy me being a comedian is cool too.
Yeah.
And so those are, I'm grateful to have the family that I do. I wish some of it kind of paid off, and like maybe I found whatever family to create of my own, but so what?
Yeah.
If I don't. And that's the other thing. So, because there's a lot of people, you put a lot of expectations on what your life is supposed to be when you're younger, and the older you get a little more settled into like, what was I, why do I care what I don't have?
Yeah.
What do I do have?
And counting your blessings.
Yeah. And not just even counting them, but just sort of like, just appreciate
yeah.
without having to like, have to think like, oh, everything had to be in a certain, because I'm very neurotic in that regard. Yeah. And recovery's greatly helped me in being able to like, we lost Sean. And Sean was one of my closest circle of comedian friends. And the way we lost him, the way that all that stuff really fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And what's incredible is I also started to kind of like look at like, he's 49. That's way too young to be dropping the way he did. But I looked at it like he was a much more popular person with people in his life. And I don't say like popularity, like, like some ego thing. It was that his just simple being of being an awesome friend and family member. How many people were at not just the funeral, but we're talking about him about like, as soon as we heard, everybody had the same feeling of like, what? Because
he's loved by many.
He was incredibly loved and was a good friend who would check up on people and talk to them. Just those things, those good things. And he's a guy that I could would goof on me back. We could even butt heads a little bit, but at the end, we're like, I love you, brother, and I love you too.
Yeah.
And as soon as I was like, wow, there's gonna be a lot of people there, and there were, and it's just the silver lining of it all. Of like, the older you get, the less people that are really in your life like that, because they die, you move on. I also had to go to my stepdad's. We had a memorial for my stepdad's parents, who knew a lot of people, popular people amongst their whole neighborhoods and all that. There's not many of them left, and there were like 5. We had like about 6 or 7 people total for them at the memorial that we put them in their thing, because they were in their 90s. Yeah. So
at that age, right?
Yeah. It's and so I'm like, it's cool to see how much your life has touched others. Yeah. And Sean had, that's why I'm glad that pastor mentioned It's a Wonderful Life, because that's exactly what I thought about in Sean's life. And that, Sean, I'm sure he had his kind of his wishes and all this other stuff, but he did what he loved to do, was full force at it, was a good friend, was a good family member, and was just an all-around awesome guy. And what I told somebody else who was really feeling the miss, I said, how he lives on, we carry on his example. Yeah. We do what,
100%.
We take that, we be the Sean Boyles for others in our lives, and check up on people and ask how they're doing, and just be an ear to listen to them in their times of need, because that's what he did. And it was amazing to see that many people, and it reminded me of, I'm glad that guy said the line. I didn't even think about that line in the movie, but that I just remember the thing, because George Bailey had the biggest trouble of like looking at his life and being like, but I'm just a big failure. And it's like, no, you're not, man. Yeah. Like, you did so much for others. You didn't get to do some of the things you thought you wanted to do, but you had such an incredibly rich life being of service to others, that all these people, like, you allowed everybody else to thrive, that without you, these people couldn't happen. Therefore, no man is a failure who has friends. And that was the line that I thought of when I think of Sean, and he had a lot of friends.
And on that note, thank you so much.
I know we tried to end it 3 times.
Yeah. It's like my marriage.
I got another thing to talk about, though. PX. So.
What?
No, I just.
I was going to say, what is it?
I do want to go see a movie at 1. So
okay, perfect. It works out. Well, thank you so much, me and Dave, for doing the podcast. I appreciate you. I love you.
Love you too.
Sean Boyles, we're going to keep him.
Love you, Sean.
We're going to keep his legacy on. And
the bistro will go on every first Thursday.
There
as well.
we go. That's what I wanted to.
I'll be running. I'll helping running those shows too as soon as I get Murphy's
is that like
out of the way. First Thursday, every first Thursday of the month at the bistro.
All right, and there you go. We will be posting this episode tonight. So thank you so much, and have it's funny. I that's like one of the last things I always say in my episodes. Have a wonderful life.
Yeah.
So
There you
yeah,
go,
it's
man.
good that we end on that.
Bedford Falls.